Hi everyone, welcome to our panel on social media today. We have been working on putting together these sort of events on a regular basis out of the Office of Communications. My name is John Ramsey. I'd like to thank my colleagues Rama over here and Stephanie from the Office of Communications for helping put this together, as well as our colleagues at Charles River Interactive who are right here, who have did all the real heavy lifting here as far as the creativity behind this event and securing our moderator for the panel. Just a couple of things here. We are planning to go to 1:15, but I know a lot of people might have some standing meetings at 1 o'clock and have to leave, so that's totally welcome. We also expect a few people to walk in. I know there's some admissions interviews that are going on that might end right at noon, so we'll probably have some people coming and going as the event goes on. Finally, I do want to do a quick intro to our moderator here. Bobbie Carlton not only is our moderator here, but she really put together our panel along with CRI, so I'm really thankful for that. Bobbie is the founder of Innovation Women, Innovation Nights, and Carlton PR and Marketing. She's an award-winning marketing, PR, and social media professional. I'll let you give the rest of the bio, but we really appreciate all your heavy lifting putting this together. We're really excited to have you and all the panelists. So thanks very much. Give a hand to Bobbie.
All right, so how are we doing on levels? Can you guys hear me in the back okay? All right. As you mentioned, I did the heavy lifting of putting together this panel. Actually, it was super easy because Innovation Women is a database of entrepreneurial, technical, and innovative women who are interested in getting speaking engagements. So I was able to go in. Wow, there's a nice echo going. It's the voice of God. I was able to go in and search on topics and also put out a request for speakers in our newsletter that goes out to about 5,000 people. And at that point, it was just picking amongst an embarrassment of riches. So we've got the top folks right here hanging out with me. Just to get back to kind of the topic at hand, social media. So one of the reasons that I got involved in this particular panel personally is that I built something called Mass Innovation Nights using social media. So Mass Innovation Nights is a monthly product launch party and networking event. Every month we help launch at least 10 new products, and we use social media to help promote those companies. So we've launched almost 1,000 new products in the last 8 years. And every month we generate somewhere around 1 million views by using social media amplification, a newsletter that goes out to about 14,000 subscribers, and we have a social media amplification team of about 400 people who have committed to helping promote local entrepreneurs and startups. So those companies have gotten about $1.3 billion in funding. And so I guess that qualifies us as a social media success because that's the marketing that we have focused on for that. What I'm going to do is actually have our speakers introduce themselves because they know themselves better than I do or anybody else possibly could, and I want to show off what fabulous speakers they are. So I think what we're going to do is going to go right down the line and have everyone just do a quick introduction of themselves and how they're using social media really quickly. So just so you have some perspective and context to put them into.
So hi, my name is Margaret Donnelly. Very loud, or not loud anymore. I am right now a consultant, but I've been a technology marketer for 30 years. Moved out from Silicon Valley about 7 or 8 years ago and joined a company called JitterJam. Where we went from inventing a social media marketing platform to exiting in 18 months. And I had a zero marketing budget, so it was all about using social media to gain traction with customers, the press, etc. We sold the company to a company called Meltwater Group, which has the media monitoring platform, Meltwater Buzz at the time. So their social media marketing platform, monitoring platform, was what I had invented and put out to market. Aside from all the social media stuff I do, I'm an entrepreneur. JitterJam was one of my companies, and I also did a company called Align Meeting, which was a whiteboard for meetings. Right now, I am focused actually more on community activism than consulting or social media, but social media is in my blood, and I've been on online social networks for over 20 years. So it's been around a lot longer than you think.
Angela?
Okay. So I'm Angela Pitter. I'm founder and CEO of Livewire Collaborative, a digital marketing consultancy. Excuse my voice, I'm coming out of a cold, I think. So humor is my specialty, but my passion is really using online marketing to help companies drive reach and help them expand their branding. I think social media is really the weapon of choice. I came to this company actually after working in high tech for over 20 years. And when I finished with high tech, I decided I didn't really want to do any high tech anymore. I either wanted to go in healthcare or maybe education. And I live in the city of Newton, and a couple of folks had approached me about running for school board, which I was kind of like, oh, I'm not really a political type. But anyway, I did it. But the one thing I knew I couldn't do was knock on 90,000 doors. So enter social media and Facebook. And that's how I really kind of reach out to the community. That was sort of a strategic component of my campaign. And if we look at what happened recently with the Trump campaign, if you think about it, he has tweeted 19,000 times. Twitter is clearly his platform of choice. And he has like 15 million followers. And what does he always do? You see him always mentioning Fox News, who also has another 11 plus followers. So anytime he mentions Fox News and they retweet him, you see he's almost doubling his reach online. So that's one of the things, you know, sort of the lesson learned is look outside of your industry and see how others are using social media, because there could be some lessons learned that are easily leveraged in your world.
Hi, I'm Christine Perkett. I have been in marketing and PR for over 20 years. I started my first business in 1998, and we were a PR marketing firm. Did a lot of social media back in the early days. In 2007, I was in a book called Social Media for Business before most businesses knew what, or excuse me, Twitter for Business before most businesses even knew what Twitter was. I think JetBlue and maybe Verizon were on there at the time. So we have trained and helped companies such as WebEx, Constant Contact, other universities, hospitals around the world really increase their brand awareness through social media. But today I am actually founder and CEO of a software company that actually competes with Meltwater now and kind of takes monitoring to the next level. We're a PR analytics software platform. So that's what I'm
anymore. So that's
no, I know. So that's where I'm at today. But obviously starting to build up my own startup brand through social media as well. So passionate about the topic and happy to be here and hopefully helpful. Oh, and since we're talking about social media, if you're on Twitter, it's Mrs. P, MISSUSP, and we can connect from there in other areas that we can help you with.
Okay, so one of the things I want to start right off with is saying, give us questions at any time in this conversation. We're here for you. So anytime you want to jump in with a conversation, you know, wave the flag, and I will get to you as quickly as possible. We do have some questions that came in originally before the event, and so I think I want to kick off the conversation with a discussion really about community building. I think you all have an amazing community that you can draw from. You have students, you have alumni, you have teachers, researchers. So I think what we want to do is kind of talk about community and community building. I usually talk about Mass Innovation Nights as a community, and we really work very, very hard to build the community, not reach out to it as an audience. So it wasn't so much a target market as we were looking for people to work with us. One example, and I'm going to ask everyone to give us an example of their own community building activities. And one tip is we left room for our community to get involved. We talk about Mass Innovation Nights as a grassroots event, and we purposely keep it a little bit rough around the edges. It's not so fancy that people feel like they're attending an event. They're attending something that they are a part of. So what we've discovered, and we've done the analysis, is that every time the hors d'oeuvres get fancy and the wine and the beer flow freely, the tweets go down. I mean, we literally have a correlation there. And so we tell our hosts when we host an event, don't make it too crazy, simple finger food, you know, don't go nuts with the beer and wine, because literally our social media presence will suffer. And if you think about it from a practical sense, it's very hard to tweet with a wine glass in one hand and a plate in the other. So maybe we can talk about some community building and examples that you guys have.
So as a marketer, you always think about, well, I'm trying to draw people to me, and I want to get my message out. And social media is kind of the opposite of that. You want to be a member of the community that you're trying to serve, whether it's academic, whether it's global business leaders. You are trying to draw attention to yourself based upon being a member of that community, understanding their needs, and trying to address them. So in thinking about what you post on social media, it isn't about this is a great school. It's about what problems are these people trying to solve. How can you help them solve it? What kind of knowledge can you impart to draw them closer to you, because you then become a thought leader within your community. And so, you know, being a good citizen is marketing, but in a subtle way that makes it no longer something that you're trying to blast out, but something that you're using to talk to.
So I work with the Newton-Needham Regional Chamber of Commerce. I've been consulting with them for probably about 4 years now, and they are the fastest growing chamber in the Northeast. They have over 800 members. One of their premier events is called Spring Seasonings, where they actually bring in 45 restaurants into the Marriott Ballroom, and it's food and wine for about 3 hours. You know, every restaurant has its own table. You kind of just walk around. So one of the things we wanted to do is how do we kind of get the restaurants to sort of build a community together. And what we decided to do was actually use Pinterest, because one, Pinterest is very visual. Food is like one of the top topics on Pinterest. So it was actually a really good platform for them. So we built a Pinterest page that actually had a board for each restaurant so that they could actually pin to their own board whatever they wanted. But we also had a community board where we actually allowed members of the chamber to paste, plug in some of their favorite recipes and whatever, and also allowed the restaurants to also jointly plug into that board as well and paste some of their best restaurants. So again, to kind of generate that community across the board. So, and it's turned out really well. It sells out now every single time. We really don't even have to promote it that much. So just some of these little simple tools that I think you can incorporate.
When I think about community, I think about two key words. One is helpful and the other is resourceful. So if you think about even in your own community, say you're a new parent, you don't know all of the resources about the school, you go to your community and they help you with that information. It's the same online, and for you all at a university, you have a plethora of things that you can be a resource around, topics that you can offer thought leaders on, and so that's fantastic. If you think about it as I want to be a resource to my followers and my fans, they're going to want to continue to listen to what you're saying. What I see brands do in not building a great community is broadcasting like the old days of marketing and PR, and only talking about their own things or only sharing things about their products or services. You have to reverse that in social media and build your audience and build your community by being resourceful, sharing information, as Angela said, that is helpful in terms of what their pain point is. So you want to come at anything that you're putting out there on social media from that perspective.
Okay. So in addition to having a great community, you guys have awesome content. You have professors creating stuff, researchers creating stuff, students creating content. So one of the things that we were talking about is what can you do with that content? So what we're looking for is some suggestions on leveraging that content and perhaps some examples of how we've leveraged content in the past. Specifically for Innovation Women, we have all of our speakers actually creating great profiles inside our database. So we're able to go into that database, search on specific topics, and we've created something called super panels. And super panels are basically, if time and money and space were no object, who would you want on a panel to talk about a specific topic? So we've gone in, we basically just pull the profiles of top speakers in a particular topic, and we create an image that we're then able to share on our blog and via social media and via our newsletter. So a lot of reuse as well. You can move on to some other content creation and content leveraging examples.
It's always a struggle to find the best content for your audience. When we were starting Jitter Jam, we were obviously all about social media marketing and drawing an audience and solving problems in marketing with social media. And the problem was we were a startup, we had no money, and developing original content is really hard. It's time consuming, it takes a lot of resources. So the way we approached it in a lean way was every Friday we'd have a topic to discuss about social media. Use cases, best practices, etc. And we put an event right out there and people could either come to our offices and talk or dial in. So every week we do this on a different topic, and I take copious notes about the discussion. It would turn into a blog post. That blog post would get posted, great SEO about topics around social media, and then we shared that out. So with 1 hour of coffee, I had a blog post, social media stuff to share. I could parse that out and utilize that in ebooks, etc., in many different ways. So leveraging that single piece of content could actually spread throughout your entire social media presence, just within an hour's worth of time and a lot of coffee.
Definitely coffee.
Yes, definitely.
So I work with a lot of executives, and one of the things they're always trying to do is build thought leadership. And one of the ways they do that is they participate on panels like this. They're always going to speaking engagements. So they have a long speech that they're always giving. That, my friend, is content. And what I sort of coach them to do is, what are the key talking points that you want to make sure your audience takes away, right? You could tweet those talking points out. You could put them in a quote. It could be Motivation Monday, Tuesday thoughts, Thursday thoughts, Wednesday wisdom. 5 days a week, you have piece of content that you can pull from that one speech. You can put that speech up on SlideShare. You video your speech, and then you also take snippets of that and, again, repurpose it. So there's at least 5, 10, 20 different ways you can take one piece of content and repurpose and put that out. So don't think about, oh, I have to generate 20 pieces of content. Really think about how I can reuse one piece of content many different ways.
I agree. I love the word snippets. I use that all the time. I think that marketers tend to think of content as these wonderful, professional, sleek, long pieces of content like white papers or ebooks or things like that. And as they both said, you can start small or you can start big and then take down snippets from that. I think if you look around anywhere, you can find content, whether it's a selfie with the CEO or a professor or whomever it may be. You can then say, learn more about he or she on our Facebook page and have a Q&A interview that you literally did over email that took them 10 minutes to fill out and you just had to edit it. Didn't really take you that long. And then you can tweet maybe one of the quotes from that interview on Twitter or put the same picture on Instagram. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be complicated, and in fact it shouldn't be. That's kind of the antithesis of social media. People don't want to see long things in Twitter. If you catch their eye by being brief and concise and resourceful, then they're going to come over to your site or your Facebook page and read more. So I say you want to start small and simple to catch attention and then draw them in with bigger pieces of content from there.
The other thing I'd like to say is that the content that you post in your social accounts doesn't have to be your own. Content curation is what most of us do these days, doing Google searches, having, monitoring different keywords, etc., to find content that's valuable to your audience, to your community. And so content curation should be a strategy that you use on a daily basis. Not only does it have the ability to pull the best content that you have, and frankly, monitoring all the MIT accounts would be one of the things I'd be doing if I were one of you, because there's tremendous content here. But basically what you're trying to do, again, is to be a resource, right? And to give the best information that you can to the people that you're trying to draw in. So curating that and sharing that out not only helps your audience, but it also builds your own community of resources that you can share out.
Right.
And that will be attracted to you as well.
It's a really good point, and as you had mentioned earlier, people will share content with their own network, as with the Trump example, but even users, students, whoever you feature in your content is then going to say, oh, look, I'm in that, and then they're going to go share it with their network, and so on and so forth. So one of my favorite strategies for content on the blog, because blogging can take some time, is a blog interview series, and it tends to go over very well with all different kinds of brands, where you find influencers or you find other kind of partners in the industry, and you simply send them, hey, we're doing this interview series, you give it a name. Would you be willing to do an interview with us over email or phone, whatever's easiest for them? Again, you can do it over email. It takes you 10 minutes to write the questions. They write the answers back. You get a photo from them, and boom, you have a blog post. And people like that. They want to see, again, that you're not only talking about yourself. So that was an excellent point. If you don't mind, I jumped.
And then one other thing I want to add is definitely monitor the content that you share out, because you want to figure out what content is really resonating with your audience. So look at how many times it's been shared, what type of engagement is there. Because if you find that something is a couple of pieces of content that are really, really highly engaged, you clearly want to do more of that. So it also sort of drives your strategy and your next steps.
I'm gonna shift us and start with Christine this time, because hey, we started this in before. You actually brought up influencers. So I think one of the big questions is, how do we define influencers? How do we find influencers? How do we engage with them?
So I would define an influencer as anyone that your key audience admires and listens to, anyone that literally influences them. It doesn't have to be someone that has a huge following. It has to be someone that your audience is listening to. In the beginning of social media, I had a lot of brands kind of freak out about influencers and want, the most popular guy with 100,000 Twitter followers that had absolutely nothing to do with their core audience. Their core audience probably never even listened to him. And, we had to steer them. It's kind of like traditional PR. You want to be in the right place, not the biggest place. The right place with the most of your audience, not just any audience. And so the same goes for finding influencers. As far as how to find them, it's pretty simple with keywords and SEO terms that you use that align with your strategies. If they're good influencers, they're going to be using those in their blog posts, in their Twitter, and their Facebook hashtags. So that's probably the most simple way. Also, speaking engagements, events. We live in a great city with a lot of happenings. Thanks to Bobbie, I'm aware of most of them in the newsletter that she mentioned. Yeah. So I highly recommend checking that out. But there are tons of events where you can go and network and see who's speaking. Inbound Marketing Conference was just last week. They have all the speakers featured on their page. You can go search by topic, you can search by person, which you probably wouldn't know yet because you're trying to find them. But if you even scroll through there, you can find some folks that probably are influencers that you then want to start following.
Right. And then so another way, again, is the whole monitoring piece. I mean, if you look at what your audience is sharing for content, like who are those influencers, the blog posts that they're sharing out. Take a look at that. Because again, you want to your point, is make sure you're putting influencers in front that they already are sort of believe in. LinkedIn is a great tool to use to kind of go in there and search. Not only to search your membership, but then in searching your membership, you also then again see what they're sharing. So, I mean, that's a really, really credible tool that you should take a look at.
So, I sold my company because of an influencer. Using my own, eating my own dog food, using my own product, we had a social CRM on the back end of our system. And so we were gathering intelligence about people that were in our social circles, who the influencers are, et cetera, and we found one that worked for ZDNet. And he wrote a CRM watch list blog post every year. And you know, we were a social media marketing and a social CRM platform, and so we found him through our social searches, started watching what he was writing, and then found out about the fact that we could actually apply to be on his watch list of up-and-coming products, and we did that. And by doing so, by really listening and honing in on who the people were that other people were looking at, we got on this watch list with Oracle and Microsoft and Marketo and all these companies, and this tiny little 8-person social CRM company got on this watch list, and it actually led to our exit. So there's a lot of ways, but really the monitoring and understanding what other people are listening to and paying attention to is vital for your growth and to really figure out who the people are that your audience wants to listen to.
And just speaking of lists really quickly, if you just Google like Twitter lists, you will find a plethora of all different kinds of expert influencers who've been identified in some kind of top 50 or top 100 list. Everything from CFOs to marketers to surgeons. So there are all kinds of curators out there, again, doing that work for you. You just have to know how to find them with the right search terms.
And even on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn Pulse, and the influencers within LinkedIn on different topics that people are watching and following is a great way to kind of follow the breadcrumbs to find out who the right people are that you should be engaging with.
How are we doing on questions? Actually, you and I were talking about a question you had beforehand. Time management.
Yeah, no, we had just briefly discussed how it's hard to fit social media into your day-to-day, and we find that Hootsuite is extremely helpful because I'm able to schedule multiple tweets 7 days a week. We have a very international audience, so it's throughout the night, of the morning, weekends. But it's like that much of my job, and so how do you fit everything in? The content sharing, the monitoring, all that, and how do you work that in? So I used to dedicate some time in the morning, some time in the afternoon, and then late before I left at night, but it's just not sustainable. So right now I'm using Hootsuite to really help the most, but just how to make that all work.
It is more time consuming than anybody knows or thinks, right? Curating content is hard, getting the original content, even scheduling the posts is hard. There are a lot of applications out there that can help. Buffer is a good one to help you find that content and schedule that post across all your social media platforms, right, and channels. But it is a matter, some of it is brute force, because I wouldn't tell anybody to use an automated system to find and post content. You don't know what's going to come up in that keyword search that may be offensive, that may be way off target. So you have to, there has to be a personal touch in it. How do you minimize that time? Using these tools and leveraging the other social media accounts that you follow is a great way. So repurposing content from your other social media accounts. The accounts and people you follow when they post, getting alerts for that so you know what they're posting, and maybe retweeting it or sharing the original content yourself. So using shortcuts to find that right content for your audience is the best way you can do to help minimize the time. But I'm never going to say that it is not a time-consuming process.
Yeah, because we do all that.
Yes, it's still hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's no, I mean, yeah, there's tools that are going to help, but there are really no shortcuts. One of the things I always tell my clients to do is, like, take a calendar, take a 365-day view, and really plug in what are your key things that need to happen over the year. And then you kind of whittle that back to a quarterly view, and then a monthly view, and then it works down to sort of the weekly view. Because I think it's easier when you take sort of that 365 chunk and then chunk it down quarterly, monthly, weekly. Because one, I mean, there's going to be simple things like, you know, okay, it's Christmas, Merry Christmas. You don't have to come up with any content on Christmas Day. All you need to say is Merry Christmas. So you plug in all those holidays, Happy Mother's Day, just plug them all in. You have all your big events, you plug those all in. And then you see, okay, now where's the holes? What's the real, you know, the meat of it? You know, you're going to have a panel coming up. What are those themes of the event? You plug those in. And so you kind of whittle it down, and then, 80% of it is going to be other people's content, and that's what you're going to kind of be searching for. I also use Feedly, which is a good tool that also integrates with Hootsuite and Buffer, that you can just kind of post straight there from Feedly into it.
So a couple of things that I would say is on both sides of this question. One is there are no shortcuts to relationship building, and that's really what you're doing with social media. So as much as we would like to advance it and make it happen faster and put it on autopilot, it doesn't work well that way. All of these tools have tried to make it work well that way. I mean, Buffer had that automated tweet these 5 things today, and people wouldn't even read them, they would just tweet them, and it was bad, so they got rid of it. And there's no shortcut to good marketing or PR. Now, are there things that you can do to make it easier? Yes. One is to have the calendar, the editorial calendar, or the social media calendar, which I'm sure y'all already have. Supplement it when new things and breaking news comes up. But also to pick a day of the week where you sit down. I like to do Sunday nights. But of course, I'd be lying if I said Monday morning. I'm like, oh, what came out this morning? But if you have to really focus, pick like a Sunday night, Wednesday night, maybe Friday morning. You spend 15 minutes looking for great content, great articles. Leave a comment. It really doesn't take that long to scan an article, and if you're the expert in your field, you're going to have an opinion on that article. I like to not just share articles. I like to say who they came from. So, of course, they're seeing that they were tagged in the update, whether on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. So, Ad Age, for example, I would tag them. And also, pull a quote from the article or give my opinion, like, I like this because. So, I'm not giving you more content ideas versus saving you time, but once you get that kind of rhythm down, you stick with the same kind of approach, it does get a little bit easier and can cut down on some of your time. And I also am a big fan of Buffer. I know Hootsuite's good too, but Buffer, I don't know, I can just add all of my channels.
Yeah.
I like the UI. So.
Yeah, I think the UI is really well.
And this also goes back to your point of measuring. So there was this great article I was so happy to see yesterday in The Economist, where they are cutting out all of their social media channels, cutting them down and focusing on only LinkedIn. And the reason they're doing that is because that is where their audience is engaging with them the most. It's a bold move. I would love to see more brands do it because, again, especially having been in the early days of social media, brands would come and say, oh my God, we have to be on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest. And I would say, no, you don't. You don't have to be in all those places. You have to calm down. You don't have to do it just because it's cool. We have to figure out, where your audience is and not only where they are, but where they want to engage with you. Because I may be on Facebook, but I do a lot of personal stuff on Facebook. I don't necessarily want to engage with brands. I don't like my clients following me on Facebook. That's the beauty of lists. But if you're going to engage with me on Twitter, I'm going to be super active. So measurement is a huge part of that, and in order to save you time and to make sure that you're being effective and that at the end of the day, you look successful in your job. And it's okay to say, you know what, we don't recommend using this channel. It's taking too much time, it's not being effective, and it's not delivering any ROI.
So one of the things that happens to me a lot is I read a lot, right? And I find these articles and then I forget about them. I want to post them later on, I forget about them. And the thing that's helped me the most is Evernote. It has a great web clipping capability where you can organize and tag these things, okay? So something about social media marketing. I want to post that later on, but I'm going to forget about it 2 days from now. So I clip it, I tag it, and now it's there in an organized fashion that I can share it out really easily. So, in the moment when you find stuff, make sure that you're putting that away to use in your arsenal of content to share out, because you know that you read a lot of stuff and you come across a lot of stuff, and the moment that you go away from it, you're going to lose it. So make sure you use some sort of tool to keep that going.
I'll share a couple of tools that I use. TalkWalker, which is a really nicer, high-level Google Alerts. You may be more familiar with Google Alerts. We will set up a separate email address and point TalkWalker searches toward that email address for each client that we work with and each company that we work with. and that enables us to just get one email address that has all kinds of content in it. You can always go in and find content to share. Like Christine was saying, when I share an article, I will share the article with often a quote from the article, or I will make sure that the writer or the author of the article is tagged in it, as well as someone who is quoted in the article. So sometimes that, that enables them to say, oh, somebody's paid attention to me, they'll retweet it, someone else will retweet it. If you have space, also including the name of the publication. So you've got, 3 or 4 potential retweets right there. We also use a tool for Mass Innovation Nights called Gaggle Amp, which is a social media amplification tool. It's not free, it's not cheap, but it's awesome. We have about 400 people who have signed up to be part of our Gaggle, our group that will basically retweet just about anything that we send them. They can also be pointed at Facebook likes or voting or other actions as well. So it's not just retweeting. And we point them at all of our launchers. 1 or 2 days a month, each of the companies that's launching with us gets their day with the Gaggle. And that will generally produce anywhere between 75 and 150 tweets or posts on any given channel. So that is a great way to manage a large group of people who are basically working on your behalf. That was actually one of the questions that we got ahead of time, is like, how can we get the students working on our behalf? So I'm going to have everybody kind of think around, what suggestions we might make to get the students more engaged in helping out and helping your goals.
I would say what I said earlier, which is feature them. Involve them. People like to be heard, and they like to share things that they're in. So whether it's, something like a student of the week or opinion of the school or whatever it is that you come up with, you can see that build very quickly, where people then are coming to you and saying, how can I be featured in this, series that you have? So that's my number one thing, is involve them. And you can involve them by asking what they'd like to see too. And it's no different really than newspapers from long ago, where you'd have the opinion section if people want to give it, or they'd send suggestions of the kind of stories that they want to see. So ask them what else they'd like to see. Ask questions. People love to give their opinion.
And with students, I would also, not only feature them, but, video is definitely a tool that should be used on all of your networks. And students love to be in front of the camera. They're always taking selfies. You could feature them. Maybe they're participating in some type of challenge. And Instagram, again, one of the things you need to look at when you use each of these platforms is what sort of the target age range for the platform. And Instagram is definitely a millennial target platform, and I would definitely incorporate using Instagram with a lot of videos of your students there, because that's where you're going to get tons and tons and tons of engagement.
Well, when I think about students at Sloan, it's probably a little bit different than the other target audiences that I think about. So, it really is dependent upon what the demographic is. As you said, Instagram is more of a millennial tool. If you're talking about, getting executives in to, your continuing education types of programs, it's a lot different than if you're trying to get new college grads into school business. So it really depends on what their preferred methods of communication are. So I'm not a video person. I actually don't like video, but I love blog content and visual content that is included with that blog. If I were the target audience of your social media campaigns to have me come to Sloan, you have to take a look at what is resonating and how people are engaging with your content to figure out what the best way to ask your student population to share out your content. Because, I may not want to do Instagram, etc., or video, but I definitely would share out a blog post from MIT Sloan about business processes or something like that. So it really is dependent upon the demographic of your audience and your student population.
You could also take the user-generated content choice like we were talking about earlier. So the best example I like to give of that is the Doritos commercial contest from years ago, where they said, hey, create a commercial for us and you might be on the Super Bowl. Well, that was brilliant because they got a ton of free content from all of these really creative people. And you can do the same thing. Granted, you can't give a Super Bowl ticket away, but or ad away rather. But people still like to be featured. So whether it's them or the content that they've created, they're creating content all the time. So figure out a way that you can incorporate it into your channels and your marketing mix.
That also goes to gamification, right? I mean, people love to be part of some sort of contest or some sort of game where they either can have personal glory, my Doritos commercial was on the Super Bowl, or something within the school, a contest that is happening already, but amplifying that to showcase some of the great things that are happening here that potential students might want to be a part of. So gamifying, taking what's already being gamified, contests that are already happening, and putting that on social to really showcase what's happening in the school.
I will also caution everybody, if you're going to be gamifying things, don't make it too complex. I've seen some crazy games that nobody entered because it was just too hard. So make it easy, make it fast, and you'll get lots of great entries and contents. Content. Lots of contents. I think we touched a little bit about measurement. Obviously, this is your special area, Christine. But I think measurement, for all of us, it really helps us figure out what direction we're going, what's working, what isn't working. We actually, at my company, for all of my companies, will go right back to Google Analytics. What is driving people to our website? And when they're at the website, how long do they stay? Do they convert? Are they leaving immediately? So that's a big important part of our measurement and telling us what we're going to be doing more of and what we're going to be taking off. So we want to address measurement.
Just again that it's so important to do, first of all. There are a ton of tools out there that are available. There's free tools. I mean, Twitter has analytics, LinkedIn has analytics. There are tools that are specialized in, my company does analytics around PR specifically, so we track with Google Analytics integration, we track referrals, we track things like share of voice and media scores and those sorts of things, but there's also a lot of social media measurement out there. But what I'll tell you, because we could spend the next week talking about the different tools, there's thousands and thousands of them. If you're not doing any, start with something simple. Just start looking at your LinkedIn content and start, most importantly, analyzing the data. We can throw data at you all day long. Anyone can capture and gather data, but unless you have someone dedicated to analyzing it and drawing correlations about that data, it's useless. And that is the biggest challenge I see for all kinds of brands right now, is they have so much data thrown at them and they just don't know what to do with it. So have someone dedicated on your team to analyzing, this Facebook page and this Twitter handle and whatever it is that you're doing, and making correlations at least at the end of the month. Like, here's the highest performing piece of content. Okay, next month, here's the highest performing piece of content. What did they have in common? Was it an interview with somebody? Was it keywords? What are the patterns of success that you can find so you can repeat what's working? And then also pay attention to what isn't working so you can pivot from that. Because you don't have time to waste, as we just talked about. And you don't have to be everywhere all the time. You want to be where it's working.
Right. And just to leverage off of the whole timing thing, sometimes when you look at your piece of content, like, well, why doesn't it work? This is a great piece of content. It could just be as simple as the time of day that the content is out there. So you really kind of want to go back to even Bobbie's point, what was happening at that moment? Were they drinking too much wine and that's why they didn't tweet? I mean, so you got to kind of put a little bit of rationale around it. And don't just automatically throw it out. Sometimes you try it again on a different network or at a different time. Just sometimes a little bit of tweaking can work. But, be careful of following sort of, I call them the vanity metrics, right? Looking at how many likes, how many followers. Like, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, Facebook likes don't pay the bills. So you need to figure out how you're gonna, build that funnel, that like, know, trust funnel, and eventually convert them, get them over to your website. What's that content that they're really engaging with, the content that they're interacting with, and make sure you do a lot more of that. And you need to really from the beginning set up what your goal is. I mean, if you have a strategy around attracting more influencers, who are those influencers? How many times are they touching your content? How many times are you touching their content? You sort of got to kind of figure it out and build how you're going to build that pipeline.
I agree that data for the sake of data is not useful. You have to really look at, if you want to build influencers, well, what's the end game building that influencer channel? Is it going to be more people coming to your website, more people getting interested in the school? It has to all go back to what is the primary goal of your social presence? What do you want to accomplish? How do you measure that, right? How do you take the influencer channel that you're building and turn that into real people coming to your school? That's the end game. All the stuff that you do in between is moving towards that goal. And so if you have these social accounts and you don't quite know where you want to go with them or what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, you're still going to build an audience. You're still going to get followers and engagement and retweets and stuff like that. But will it move you forward to the place that you want to be? That's the question that you have to ask. Sure.
Sorry.
No problem. That's what we want.
Yes.
I have a question. So if you want to use, for instance, Twitter or Instagram in a program that is run during the fall and during the spring, how far in advance do you start running all these marketing tools for people to get engaged into the program?
So what's the end goal of having Instagram or Twitter? What are you trying to accomplish?
So the end goal would be to have students be eager to participate in the program.
Okay.
So you're looking for timing?
We want to present, who the instructors are going to be and what classes they're going to be taking and, the topics that they can get engaged. And, just kind of educate them a little bit more in a very short way, but than just going to a website. Just like kind of creating that feeling of, I want to be there, but how far in advance do you do that? I mean, have you had any experience in the past, 2 months in advance? I mean, how engaged are the people usually when they go into these Twitter sites to continue until the end of that program that I'm trying to run?
Are you starting from scratch, or you're starting from scratch? Okay, because that's important to know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say in that case, if you're starting from scratch, I would start building the presence probably 6 months in advance. I don't know if you guys have a different opinion, but in order to build enough mass following that your message is going to spread once you start with the key campaign, I would give it 6 months. You might be able to do it in 3. I think it would be take a lot of intensity to do that, but that's my opinion. I'm sure you all have others.
No, I agree. I think, 6 months when you're starting from scratch, that's a good time frame. Because it's kind of like, hey, 6 months out there, you're here, and then you go down 5 months, and then, the intensity is going to build 3 months until the day. So, you're working your way up there, to do it, and, back to that point, 3 months that's a really intense effort. And then think about Twitter. I mean, you blink and then, 5,000 tweets goes across the screen. So, I mean, you have to be there a lot. There has to be a lot of content going out there consistently.
And not only that, but you proactively have to go build your audience. I'm sure you know that, but it can't just be that you're building a presence by tweeting or sharing an update. You have to actively go find people and then not only follow them, but somehow get them to follow you back. So you've got to be building up that type of content and show them what they can expect to get from this account and this channel.
Always start with the people you know, right? So if you're building a new program, who do you know that you can personally ask to help you build that channel? So the people in this room are a really great start, right? If you're starting a new Twitter account, these are the people that can help you initially build that audience surrounding the school. And definitely go out and be proactive about finding the influencers, finding potential students, finding current students that may be interested in helping or interested in what you're posting. But it is a long-term gig. It's not a short-term thing. And it does take time to build that audience and to build that credibility and authority within any social network. So, you know, your expectations should be longer term versus shorter term. And you have to look at it from the long game versus, you know, in 6 months I'll have this and then I'll have accomplished my goal.
It also depends on your resources. I mean, Bobbie,
Yes.
you built a community from scratch, basically. How long do you think it took you where you were at a point of momentum? I think that's, we can say numbers, but momentum is probably.
So actually it was two different situations. So creating the Mass Innovation Nights community and creating the Innovation Women community were in two different eras. Mass Innovation Nights, the first event, which we promoted solely through Twitter. We did not, I used it as a test. I started with, you know, 0 people following Mass Innovation Nights on Twitter, and I didn't even talk to people face to face about it. I only tweeted about it, and it took 3 days to get 10 companies signed up. Of course, this was 2009. There were a lot fewer people on Twitter. It took 3 days to get 10 companies to sign up to launch new products. And then we literally only had 3 weeks to fill up a room. And it took us 3 weeks tweeting, connecting with people solely on Twitter to put 200 people in the room before the event. I would not try and do that today. Number one, there's a lot more events, especially in the startup community in Boston. Fast forward to 2014, we crowdfunded our Innovation Women the end of 2014, and I started building the Twitter account in June, started the crowdfunding in November, and then we launched the site in May. And by the time we launched the site, I think we had about 5,000 followers on Twitter. And part of that was because we did the allies way of building. So I basically decided what my cause was, which was gender balance and women's causes. And I followed and retweeted and engaged with every other organization I could find on Twitter that was focused on the same topic. And it took probably 4 years for Innovation Nights to get up to that same level of number of followers on Twitter, but it was also a different era.
And you were piggybacking off of Innovation Nights too, so here's a way to piggyback on the other accounts within MIT, you know, and having that audience already that you can tap into, which is an awesome way to really jumpstart what you're doing, right?
Yeah, and I wanted to add one thing. You know, back to the point that you made, your students the existing students are sort of the low-hanging fruit. They're the ones that could be your advocates, and you kind of get piggyback off of what they're doing on social media already, and then help them insert this whole programming and sort of advance it on your behalf.
Got a question over here?
Sure. Do you have any experience with excuse me, B2B social media? And also, I mean, you talked about a little bit using your students, but how you using social media to market internally?
So internal communications and B2B, so two separate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So either one of those.
So for me, that's what I did with Jitter Jam, right? So my customers were businesses and brands that were getting into social media marketing, right? So they're using our platform to listen and find their advocates and find the people that are interested in them or in specific topics, do outreach, market to them, etc. You know, people think that, or a lot of people used to think that social media was just for consumers, right? B2C. But B2B is a really strong market for social media, and it has been for a long time. You know, one of the examples I like to use is when I was at Jitter Jam, I was trying to find a video hosting platform. And all I did was put out a tweet that said, I need to find a video hosting platform. And within 5 minutes, I had 4 vendors that were tweeting, that, you know, engaging me in conversation, and I eventually bought one. So, you know, I'm both a consumer and a customer, but I'm also, you know, looking at it from the standpoint as a business buyer. I'm looking as well. I'm a consumer as well. And so it's just as effective to use social media for that kind of.
And so for B2B, you know, one of the things is like, so what's the goal, right? So some companies, they're trying to do prospecting and reach out to other companies. So, you know, put together, you know, your hot list. So what's the hot list? And you look at those, follow your hot list on all the platforms, and how are you going to interact with those companies on Twitter, how you're interacting with them on LinkedIn, how you're interacting with them on Facebook. That's really, you just have to be where they are. And there's a lot of business intelligence, in particular on Twitter and LinkedIn, that you can use to help with the prospecting.
This could be interesting.
Yeah.
Good class. We good?
I think we're actually going to have to. I'm supposed to have it till 1:30, but the professor tells me we're actually once. So.
Well, one of the things I will say is we're all really easy to find on social media. Right. So I'm Bobbie C, B-O-B-B-I-E-C.
I'm M.W. Donnelly, D-O-N-N-E-L-L-Y, and in fact, I just wrote a post on my blog about kind of what I call the 6 C's of social media marketing. So if you look on my Twitter, you can find the link.
Now, Angela Pettis.